Have you ever wondered what a race to the top would look like if it involved some of Canada's most prominent political figures? Imagine Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Elizabeth May and Jagmeet Singh, not in a debate hall, but on a steep, treacherous mountain path. Now let's embark on this fascinating journey together. In the early days, the mountain was just a speck on the horizon for these political figures. In the late 90s, Justin Trudeau, the son of a former prime minister, was merely a drama teacher with political ambitions. Around the same time, a young Pierre Poilievre was just beginning his career in politics, first as a legislative assistant, then as a member of parliament. Meanwhile, Elizabeth May, a longtime environmental activist, had yet to take the helm of the Green Party. And Jagmeet Singh? He was still a law student, far from his future role as the leader of the new Democratic Party. As the new millennium dawned, each began to make their ascent. Trudeau won his first seat in Parliament in 2008, and just 5 years later he became the leader of the Liberal Party. Not far behind, Poilievre was making a name for himself in the Conservative Party, becoming one of its most vocal members. Simultaneously, on another path, May was elected as the first Green Party member in the House of Commons, while Singh was making waves in Ontario politics, eventually becoming the first person of colour to lead a major Canadian political party. As our political climbers neared the peak, the challenges grew steeper. Scandals, policy disagreements and public opinion polls acted like loose rocks and sudden storms, threatening to send them tumbling down the mountain. Today, they continue their climb, each hoping to reach the peak and achieve their political goals. Their paths may be different, their strategies diverse, but their destination is the same. So what have we seen today? We've journeyed with 4 of Canada's most prominent political figures, from their humble beginnings to their current positions near the top of the political mountain. We've seen their struggles, their triumphs, and the obstacles they've had to overcome. Remember, a political career is not a sprint but a marathon, a constant climb towards the peak. Each step, each decision brings them closer to the top, but the path is never easy and the peak is never as close as it seems. And so, the climb continues.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
What's the temperature out in Ontario?
It's only a balmy -5.
You must be enjoying that.
I am actually. I'm one of the rare people that actually enjoy winter.
The older I get, the less I can stand the cold, my dear. Can I say my dear? Is that? I was in my office and I was talking to somebody and I called her dear, and then my boss yells, "You can't call people dear nowadays." And I go, "Well, I've known her for 10 years.
I don't hate it.
Okay, then I'm
but,
not going to say that. Sorry, it's just something ingrained in me. It's my Canadian upbringing. Sandee, so
okay, it's fixed.
Okay, so I was at the store today, and I thought, as I was pushing the shopping cart through the snow, we got a little bit of snow out here, not as much as the farmers need. I was thinking, why don't they have hovercraft shopping carts? You know,
probably be very expensive. I don't think the technology is really there to make them convenient and rechargeable, and people would steal them for sure.
Okay, I get, well, you're worth it though. You're worth it for a heavy Hoover shopping cart, or maybe some snow tires. You know, it gets pretty awkward for that. Your YouTube is actually you're gaining followers. You're starting to get there. You're getting traction, and I enjoy watching your broadcasts. So I appreciate you doing that. So you were with you were the Canadian on TYT, doing Canadian stories and Rebel Headquarters. Unfortunately, and I know quite a few people who have left TYT, and my own beginnings with TYT was about 2015 when Bernie was running for president, and that really sucked me in, and the Majority Report sucked me in. And I used to watch that all faithfully, but the last couple of years, I can't seem to watch TYT too much. It gets on my nerves, especially with Cenk going, "Memberships, guys, buy a membership," right? And it just, I come to YouTube for no commercials, and there's commercials. I don't mind a little bit, but my gosh. Can I ask what led to your break from TYT, or you still got friends there and stuff, right?
Uh, I don't know if I would say that. um, I don't know if some of the people I worked with have seen my videos, so it's hard to say.
Right.
There are still people at TYT I like.
Sure.
So, I don't wish the network ill at all. I don't wish for them to be canceled, but there are a couple problematic people that unfortunately are at the top of the network.
Right.
But that had nothing to do with my original departure from Rebel HQ. It was simple numbers thing. My videos weren't performing.
Well, I kind of enjoyed it because I had a Canadian flavor lots of times, right? And I think we miss that now. The journalism in this country has all been consolidated, concentrated. Like we have 2 hometown papers. They're owned by the same publisher. You don't get different views or anything. It's the same guys. And then also, so Toronto writes a story up and they throw it into the Edmonton paper. Really no local news whatsoever.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize you can look at the top of the article to see who the article is actually from. And a lot of them is like Canadian press.
Yes.
So like the easy way to find that out is you can also just take a chunk of a paragraph, copy and paste it into Google search and see all the other papers that have the exact same article.
That is exactly it. That's global media. The Star, I mean, they have papers in each city, but it's all centralized. I remember when music did that in the, I think it was the late 70s, they started going to your local radio station. We get tapes from Chicago and play that overnight, like Rick D's rock and roll stuff. So we're definitely, like, for journalists and for people on YouTube, we're definitely missing the niche for local politics, local events, and it seems YouTube's kind of filling that void up. It's difficult to know who to trust, though, out on the internets, right?
Oh yeah, it's every channel has a bias.
Yes.
My bias is I lean progressive. So as long as you know what the bias is going into it, then you can maybe take some things with a grain of salt. But the problem is a lot of these channels will advertise themselves as being fair and balanced when they're not.
Yeah. Yes, Tucker.
Yeah. I would like to say I'm fair, balanced, and like I said, I have progressive leanings, but I'll give credit where credit is due and call out people on the left when I see the need for it, but also I tend to focus on that progressive point of view.
Yeah, no, I would consider myself progressive. I have voted, like, things have changed as I got older, and I'm not over the hill. I just got a good view. And one of my favorite politicians was actually Rene Levesque and Peter Lougheed, and both kind of conservative. He was Catholic, and I'm the cream of the crop in politicians right now is not rising to the top. We're tending to get people, like, if I take Justin and I take Pierre, I could almost interchange them, and each one would have their own biases, like you said, and lean towards doing something that benefits them. But really, there's no change, and I'm really disappointed in Jagmeet with the NDP. I think he's had a chance to really break in the party, and it hasn't. It really hasn't. He's actually becoming a non sequitur. He doesn't seem to be involved in the discussion. It's either Pierre or Justin for the next election, which will probably be within the year, right? So, year or so.
Yeah, I'm disappointed with Jagmeet as well. I had a lot of hope for him when he first got in. Like, he had that energy. He seemed to, he could bring a crowd, and really get them motivated and revved up, but he's really underperformed when it comes to that sort of thing. Like he really just seems to have been taken over by the establishment type thing. And it's disappointing because here we have the NDP propping up the Liberals. And so far, the only thing I can think of that he's helped push through is means-tested dental care.
And that's not even pushed through yet, right?
Yeah.
It still has to
So,
be voted on. Means tested dental care. I think like anything, like with America, with your social security, no means test.
mhm,
Same as dental or social programs in Canada should be no means testing. Everybody should get it. Your taxes pay for it all.
mhm.
Although I think the majority of the taxes are coming from, let's say, us little guys versus the big guys on top, who could probably pay a little bit more to keep this country running.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, though, is whenever the NDP does show some initiative and try to pass legislation that would, target the people at the top, the most wealthy, and the corporations, and increase their taxes, for some reason, the Liberals and Conservatives always find common ground to vote against it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Bloc Québécois too as well.
Yeah, so they're very good at finding common ground, the Liberals and Conservatives.
All these politicians, and not going to America, but they seem groomed. You know what I mean? They've
Mhm,
somehow got a sponsor, a donor, or they're taught how to act. Pierre is went through a makeover, and
mhm.
I don't know if he's going to get LASIK surgery too, but and some of the
Yeah.
videos he's put out there are quite striking. He's from what I read, anyways, it resonates with some people. So I'm sure he's dragging some votes into the Conservative Party.
Oh, I have no doubt that if an election was held today, he'd win.
Mhm.
Just because he's, giving that populist vibe out that people actually really want. But the problem is he's lying. He's lying most of the time. Like, if there was one thing I could change about electoral politics here in Canada, it would be
Yeah.
to pass simple legislation that politicians, when they're campaigning, are not allowed to lie,
Okay.
because they're allowed to right now,
Well, let's do
which is
that.
just really ridiculous.
Well, how do we do that? A petition? Should we do a stern email to the government?
Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, the way things are.
Well,
But it is just absurd to think that they're allowed to lie in campaign ads and nothing can be done about it.
it is.
And Pierre Poilievre is very good at calling out Justin Trudeau for some of the wrongs that Justin Trudeau does, but again, lies about what Justin has done, exaggerates it, that sort of stuff. But then he never really says what he's going to get done other than, I'm going to make life better for you. But he never gives the how.
Hmm. Well, they never do. Smart politicians never give the answer, right? And
Yeah.
hence the problem down in America.
Yeah.
I would suggest.
Well, Doug Ford was able to be elected to Premier of Ontario without even releasing a platform.
Yeah, but he's look at him. Don't you just want to hug him or anything like that? You know. Sorry.
Maybe if I were a boa constrictor.
Well, the around the world too, it seems these populist people, people who can be populist, and they say the wrong thing, but they say it loud and they get other people saying it. They're coming into power, or at least they're holding a big sway.
Yeah.
In government. And geez, I remember the FLQ crisis and the terrible wrongs the government did handling that. To me, though, the politicians, and I could be wrong, seem to be sterner stuff or more honest. I think politicians always lie. Like my dad, there was a mayor here who was punted out, and he came back for re-election. And my dad always said, hey, when that guy's making money, you're making money. And that's why he voted for him. That's my dad, though. So old.
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
It's just if we're going to elect people, it'd be best if we actually were allowed to know ahead of time what we're electing.
Yeah. Well, that's true. One of my
Instead
favorite.
of, sorry, like prime example is Justin Trudeau turning his back on proportional representation.
Mm-hmm. If he would have put that through, we'd be in a better spot today, especially
Yeah.
with him potentially losing the government.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people who voted for him specifically because of that.
Are you sure it wasn't for marijuana? Is that why they voted for him?
There wasn't anything really preventing them ahead of time.
Yeah, that's true. No. Well, the type and the character of politician, if there's money to be made, they'll be in there. Like with Pierre is the SNC Lavalin bribery scandal, which I really, and Bombardier as well, where government money went into these firms, and they were never spanked hard enough because they're a Canadian treasure. So we can't do anything against these companies, right? And I, on the other hand, would say, no, you throw the CEO into jail and new management, and you're done. China, they do that. South Korea, they do that. America, they don't do that. Canada doesn't do that as well. And then we have graft and bribery and corruption.
Capitalism for the win. And it's so ridiculous to see the corruption out in the open, and yet nothing's being done.
That's the thing with Trump. He gets away with it too, with the stuff he says. People just go, "Oh, that's Donald," and nobody backs him up. I mean, nobody says to him, "You're wrong." Besides the voices on who don't like him, like his own people don't tell him he's wrong, right?
It's just, especially with Doug Ford in office right now, the corruption is so blatant. Like everyone knows there has been some investigations launched into him, but nothing has really happened to him because of it, even though, again, it's all out in the open for people to see. Like now Staples will be getting Service Ontario kiosks.
What?
So, like in Alberta, I'm sure there's something similar when you need to go renew your license or your health card, Service Alberta, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, actually, they've privatized a lot of it here in Alberta, so we have all these.
That's happening here now, and they're being moved into Staples.
It's a bad idea.
Yes.
So you're going to go to Staples, so you can go do your Purolator there as well, and then you can get your birth certificate as well. You see, part of the problem here is our information goes overseas, which it should not. Any information for a Canadian should stay right here in Canada, as far as I'm concerned. Call centers that have your monetary information should not exist in places other than Canada for our own information. And now you're going to give it to an American firm, the ability to look into your, personal birth certificates, registration, wedding, whatever. I find that disagreeable.
Yeah, and they're going to look for ways to monetize it even more. It's just because then we also had COVID testing through Shoppers Drug Marts was subsidized. And these are all people who have connections to the Ford campaign, like were contributors to his campaign and stuff. The corruption is right there out in the open. He's paying back his buddies by doing these favors for him. And it's so frustrating that not enough people are paying attention to what's really happening, because he got reelected with only 18% of possible votes because so few people came out to the last provincial election. And so with that, he's going to continue to dismantle our healthcare and privatize public services and just make life hellish for the people here in Ontario.
But haven't the opposition parties got any traction at all? Isn't it some of the fault on them as a result? Not being able to bring people out to the polls?
Yeah. The person who ran the last time as leader of the NDP, Andrea Horwath. She
Mhm.
was in there for like 5 elections as leader, something like
Mhm.
that. She should have stepped down a long time ago. But now she was just replaced with somebody that doesn't really represent the base of the NDP. A woman who comes from a very wealthy background and stuff, you know.
Mhm.
Just she was an establishment pick.
Mhm.
You know, the establishment within the NDP picked her to be the next leader. And the only good thing she's done so far is she has, you know, launched a couple of investigations into the Ford government, but she's not revving up the people. She's not energizing people. She's not inspirational. And then she goes around and kicks out Sarah Jama from caucus.
And Sarah Jama, for us not familiar with Ontario politics, is
She is a young politician. She's only in her 20s.
okay.
Lives with disabilities, relies on a wheelchair for mobility. Black, Somali descent, Muslim, and advocate for Palestinians.
Oh, okay. Have you denounced
Yeah.
Hamas today,
Yeah.
Sandee?
It's not part of my morning mantra, I gotta say.
So, and is that why she was kicked out, because of her
Yeah.
Palestine? Yeah, in
Just a
favor of
couple days
Palestine?
after the October 7th event, she spoke out and said, was calling for a ceasefire and saying, you know, people in Palestine shouldn't be targeted and harassed type thing. And which is something that the party later on came to agreement with, but she said it before them. You know, she did it without their permission.
Mhm.
But also she was serving Doug Ford with papers for defamation because he sent out a tweet shortly after hers, and it's probably still up, and it's really gross, accusing her of supporting the graphic language. I'll censor it a bit. Sexual
No, no.
assault and murder. Okay, the rape and murder. He actually has that in the tweet. The rape and murder of women and children in
Mhm.
Israel.
Yeah.
And she obviously did not say that. It was basically her only fault was she didn't outright condemn Hamas first. And because of that, she was kicked out of her caucus
Right.
for going against the wishes of her party. But her party did nothing to support her when she's under attack by the premier of the province.
That's right.
Like, nobody called for Doug Ford to take down that disgusting tweet.
No, I
So
get that.
she
That
sits as an independent right now.
okay.
But she is representative of what the NDP base is, though. She was an activist. Well, she still
Well,
is.
yeah, I would say that, but so Rachel Notley has stepped down, or is stepping down, as the NDP leader in Alberta, and she was premier. I knew her dad, not well or anything. I knew about him. Grant Notley, who died in a helicopter crash, I think it was, or a plane crash, and she was good. She was probably one of our best premiers, probably since Lougheed. They took the oil industry to task for going against regulations and stuff. So that was good. She was for pipelines. Her base is the working class, is what it is. Is the NDP maybe trying too hard with activists? And can activists and the working class, can they get along in one party? I guess that's my question.
They can, but the NDP doesn't want activists. They don't even want the working class at this point, pretty much.
Uh,
Like, the reality is the conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, Doug Ford, they're the ones drawing in the working class because they're the
yeah.
ones claiming to fight for them,
Mhm.
whereas they're not, not by a long shot. And the NDP, provincially here anyway, and federally, has been screening out activists from even being able to become candidates. Like, I was actually quite surprised when Sarah was elected as the candidate, because I
Okay.
was amazed she got through the screening given her activist background.
Mhm. The establishment in the NDP, so people who come from money, same friends as in Liberals and progressive, or sorry, they're not progressive anymore, or the Conservative Party. Do you think because of their, it's like a lot like England, where all these guys go to school together, whether it's Eton, and then they go into or Cambridge and go into politics, and they know each other, and it makes it really hard for them to go against. I mean, they're friends, and I think there's some graft as a result.
Yeah, it's all close-knit circles. It's people who want to be career politicians opposed to people who want to make change for people. Like, it was really ridiculous story here in Ontario again is somebody is vying for a position in the Liberal Party who literally just ran for the Conservative Party.
Yes. Well, Donald Trump used to be a Democrat.
Yeah, like there's no difference between the two when they're picking candidates almost. So it's and then the NDP is screening out the more progressive base. So they're all kind of coalescing.
Right. Well, the NDP party as it sits too is people were wondering whether Rachel Notley would go federal, but she's ticked off some environmentalists and some other activists. So her brand of politics, I don't think would play nationally. Well, I mean, it would play, but not for the people who control the NDP and Liberal parties. So,
well, the problem with running for leadership of the NDP is they have to actually have a leadership race.
Yeah.
And since
can't I buy a whole bunch of memberships and then vote the guy I want in?
No.
Isn't that no?
No. That's not how it works. They had a convention. The NDP had their convention and they voted not to have a leadership race. So there's no competition against Jugmeat because there's somebody here in Ontario I'd like to see run for federal leadership.
Do you want to name that person or?
Matthew Green.
And he's an Ontario person. Is he an MP right now or?
Yep.
Yeah, for
Hamilton.
For Hamilton?
And NDP.
Okay. Yeah, I had some friends who used to go to the NDP meetings, and they were trying to get people to run there. It's a challenging job to get the person you want to run.
Well, part of the problem is the cost.
Yeah.
Like how much money you have to have in order to run for leadership is ridiculous.
Yes.
But then also the people who go to these conventions tend to be well off because they can afford to go to these conventions. You have to pay a ticket price to get in, plus hotel and all this sort of stuff. So it really limits the people who can actually vote on if there's going to be a leadership race or not, which is, again, just so unfair because here I know riding associations have been overridden by the NDP, and the NDP has just dropped in candidates against the wishes of the riding associations. Like they're not picking who their candidate is going to be.
You would think, as a point of order, the NDP would strive to have better moral and ethical boundaries.
Oh yeah, you would think so, but I have personal experience with them, so I know better.
Okay. Well, it's a little different out in Ontario for NDP than it was in Alberta. And the leadership race, there's a couple of people who are, like you say, are come from money, and they were with a different party and they want to run for the NDP leadership and stuff. You don't get the grassroots. There's a voice. So you got the Trump voices, the voices on the right, and then you have some activists. You don't have those voices who are just trying to make a living and have their family, because they're just so ticked off with politics, they just ignore it. And that's the beauty of the system, is get people to ignore politics, and they get to put in whoever they want, whoever will help with the establishment.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. No, politicians make legislation that serves their benefit, not the benefit of the people.
Yeah, that's true. And the corporations, the heck's that guy? The Weston family and
Galen
Loblaws.
Weston, yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, the prices in the grocery stores, the quality of the food is crap, like for
Mhm.
vegetables and stuff. I firmly believe everything should be local as much as possible. And I don't
Well,
know why I'm getting an apple from
mhm.
Washington when British Columbia is right next door.
I'm fortunate that I live near farmers markets and stuff, so I can get fresh produce, which
Mhm.
isn't gouged in price all to hell, but it also requires you to have a certain level of skills in cooking and whatnot because it's all. And I regularly make myself sick from my own cooking,
Oh,
so
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm not good at that. Um, but it's all a big. It's a money making machine for Galen Weston because they own so many of the grocery stores, so they jack up the prices in the high end grocery stores where you can get the better quality food and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
then, since you can't afford there and grocery prices are just exploding so much, people then go to the discounted, like No Frills and those types of stores, but they're owned by the same person, by the same
Yes.
group. So they might be losing a little bit money on the high end stuff, but they're gaining so many more customers on the low end.
That's true.
And yeah, the quality sucks. I hate going to them because they either don't have what I'm looking for, or a lot of the times I can't afford even just the crap produce that they have.
Mhm.
So, like I eat on average 2 meals a day. And every time I go out shopping between basic needs and food, it's over $100.
Oh, yeah.
And I rely on disability for my income.
Mhm.
Can't afford it.
Well, if 60 is the new 40, the $100 bill is the new 20,
Hmm.
as far as I see it at the shopping centers. Galen Weston, he was saying it was the suppliers
Yeah.
that were gouging. And the thing is, what he doesn't tell people is they own the suppliers, or at least 80% of the suppliers. So they're making money from the supplier, two
Mhm.
ways, right? From supplying it and then from selling it. So that's really disingenuous as
Yeah.
far as that goes. But don't worry, Justin invited them all to Ottawa to have a talk about it,
Mhm.
right? And I don't see the prices going down, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily going to the farmer; it's the middle guy, it's the supplier, it's the Galen Westons of the world
Mhm.
making money on it, and it's a good gig for them. But these guys who purport to be Canadian, like we're still a small country, well, 40 odd million now, is you would figure they would have a little more, I wouldn't say nationalistic, but a little more, they should be more in favor of Canada and by giving us good things
Mhm.
instead of being like British or American oligarchs. But that's exactly what they are.
Yeah, there used to be more like Canadian
Yeah.
pride, more Canadian brand, I guess.
Used, used
But
to be
even,
kinder.
yeah,
It used to be kinder.
but even something like Tim Hortons that everyone kind of, connects to Canada is not even a Canadian company anymore.
Brazilian, yeah,
Hmm.
right.
So it's like, but you'll see all the politicians holding up their Timmies as,
Right.
ooh, this is Canada, Bury. And it's just, it's so ridiculous. And then I remember, like, again, of all the controversies, come on, Justin Trudeau getting in trouble because he went to a boutique donut store to get donuts instead of going to Tim Hortons. And so he was supporting a small business as opposed to a chain that's owned by a foreign country. Like it's just,
That is true, ain't it?
it's like let him buy the boutique donuts and support local business and promote them. That I'm okay with that. He doesn't need to be promoting Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is doing just fine.
Well, they are, and they're out now with for 60 years. We've been a staple of Canada, and I
Mhm.
look at these commercials, and what they don't tell you is, like you said, is they're owned by a non-Canadian
Mhm.
company, and I forget they own a couple of fast food facilities too. And I remember. Do you remember they used to make their own donuts in the shop? Do you have any
Um,
recollection? I used to stop from work. It was in the days I could eat a dozen
mhm,
donuts and nothing would happen to me, right? Now I got to watch it. Um, yeah, and the smell coming from the Tim Hortons shop
mhm.
was just amazing because they did their own donuts and now they're all frozen and sent
Yeah,
to them.
it's
The quality was better.
yeah, like they still bake them in some locations.
Yeah,
So they're all pre-made in a
they're all,
factory
yeah,
and then they're shipped so that all they have to do is shove them in the oven and or add toppings. Sometimes
yes.
they can get creative with the toppings they add to them, but
Mhm.
it's not like they're being made in store
Yeah,
anymore.
a couple of
Um,
franchises got their hands slapped for trying to do it, and
mhm.
the corporation told them you can't do that. So,
Yeah, it's basically Pillsbury dough type,
yeah,
baking.
still good
Uh,
sometimes, Are you your area? You're in South Ontario, are you?
Southwestern.
Southwestern. So all you guys who want to live close to the American border instead of in the real Canada, where I
Mhm.
am. I'm just joking.
Whereabouts
Uh,
in Alberta are you?
I'm up in Edmonton.
Oh, yes.
And then every couple of weeks I go up to the Yukon.
I have
Uh,
family in Edmonton.
do you?
I was actually born in Edmonton.
Where are you? Oh, okay, in Edmonton.
But
We
I
call
only
it.
spent like the first 2 years of my life in Alberta,
Uh,
so I can't say I'm Albertan.
well,
But
that's where you get your humor from. Then
uh,
is the first 2 years of your life in Alberta.
maybe
So gotta be a little dry. Yeah, dry
people say
humor.
that I copy after my father, even though I didn't really know him because
Oh, okay.
it was his side of the family that lives in Alberta. So I went to Alberta for his funeral a bunch of years ago,
Okay.
and
Sorry to
then
hear.
6 months later went up for the burial because it is flew to Edmonton, but the town he was from is a 7 to 8 hour drive north of Edmonton.
Okay. How
So
many
went
hours? How many
7 to 8
hours?
hour drive north.
Okay. Way,
Uh,
way north.
so yeah, so went to his funeral, but then in his hometown, the ground was too frozen to bury his ashes. So I went back for the burial service the following
Okay.
spring.
All right. Well,
And it's
sorry to.
just, it's okay.
Yeah.
It is just wild though to go that far up north
Mm-hmm.
in November and then again in May because of the different in daylight.
Yes. Yes. I got a hard time sleeping during the summer there because it seems like the sun doesn't go down. And so where I am is around Whitehorse, where I go for work, and the sun comes up at about 11, goes down till 4:30. So I tell my better half that I work from sun up to sundown.
Mhm.
So, so,
Well, I'm a night person.
mhm.
So when I went in November, I didn't even realize how long the dark was. Even though it was like the sun set by 4 in the afternoon.
Yes.
Uh, but then in May when I went and I wanted to try to stay up to see the aurora borealis, but I'd been on a flight and stuff, and it's like midnight and the sun is still up.
Mhm.
And it's like, I can't do this.
No, no, you have to wait till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, well, the thing about the north too is we haven't industrialized it all that much, so the air quality is actually much better than down south. In fact, the Yukon was rated #1 in the world a couple of years
Mhm.
running for best air quality. So, which is
Well,
cool.
I just it is a really different feel up there and just
Hmm.
being at my cousin's house and one night I was up for the aurora borealis. Unfortunately, it wasn't a spectacular night, but I still got to see
Uh,
them. So I was doing nighttime photography of it. And all I could hear all around were coyotes, like just barking and yelping away. And I'm like to my cousin, is like, are we safe up here? And she didn't even hear them. She's so used to it. And she's like, coyotes? What coyotes? And it's like they're all freaking around. I feel like, they're circling the farm.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
the ravens too are quite big as well.
Yeah,
They're-
that's
uh,
the other thing I notice is how large the animals are there.
oh yeah,
Because it's like here in southwestern Ontario, we have deer and they're dainty little things, you know, think of Bambi and stuff. But then when I was up north, you see a deer there and it's like, goosh, goosh, goosh.
yeah.
It's just this monster of a thing. And it's like,
On steroids.
okay.
Yeah. No, that's true. The difference in the country, we're so big and so many
Mhm,
time zones. Well, we quite often get bears.
mhm,
I have a place out in Prince George, my grandfather's place, and constantly getting black bears in.
mhm,
And my dog went after one, and unfortunately, she got slashed in the belly from the bear, but
mhm.
she was okay. It didn't pierce, so that was good. Um, and she recovered,
Oh, that's
and
good.
the bear ran away. So, a black bear will eat you. A grizzly will just make
Mhm.
sure you're dead. So, but
Either way, the end result for the person is still not good.
that's true. Um, but you might fertilize some Canadian flowers. How
Yeah.
about, eventually, depending on the
Yeah.
digestive system of the bear.
I'm a bit wary about that. We don't really have to worry about bears. Like there are in some areas not too far from here,
Hmm.
there are bears and stuff still in the wildlife. Coyotes just outside of city limits and stuff. So every now and then, like a deer will come into some parts of the outskirts of town, but it's not a lot.
Hmm.
But you don't have to travel far to see that wildlife either.
Rats. How about rats? Do you guys got rats? I know in
Everyone
Toronto
does.
they do. No, we
Everyone
don't.
does.
We don't. Got a
Uh,
mountain with BC, and then they
mhm.
had a big rat kill. There are a few that do come
Yeah.
across, that's for sure. But majority, I never seen a rat till I went to British Columbia. So
Mhm.
my
I
first time.
don't see them in the wild. Like even when I was living in Toronto, I lived there for a few years. I used to see the mice like on the tracks, the subway tracks and stuff, but can't say I've seen a rat running around
Don't
Toronto.
don't don't they go down to the harbor? People do, and they shoot rats in the dark. A friend of mine was telling me, in the dark of
Not that
lights.
I know of.
Yeah, I thought there was a rat patrol in Toronto that they shoot the rats over at the harbor.
Not that I know of. Like I'm sure there are problems with rats in some areas of the city, but
Hmm.
like I said, when I lived there, it wasn't. I can't recall seeing them. Like I
Okay,
probably did, but didn't think of it. But it wasn't like, oh, there's a rat dragging a piece of pizza through the subway or something. No.
right. Can I ask you, in Ontario, since I'm from Alberta, the rent prices in my province and in Vancouver, oh, just skyrocketing. Are you guys having the same problem?
Yes, it is
Why is that, Sandy?
ridiculous.
Why is it a problem?
Oh, well, depending on who you're listening to, it's either the federal government's problem or uh um yeah, Vancouver is the most expensive city. And I think one other place in BC is up in the top 10, and then the rest are all Ontario.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, totally. I don't understand how people can live out there. Um, Even Nova Scotia, the rents are going up. They had
Mhm.
rent controlled apartments, and landlords are saying we're renovating. You guys have to get out, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
That
No,
shouldn't happen.
Doug Ford got rid of rent control.
Why?
So
I thought he was part of the working man.
yeah,
Isn't that
yeah. No, no. Competition
working
in the
man's
market.
competition in the market? Once
Yeah.
they deregulated the gas and the electricity in Alberta, it was a mistake. And Ralph Klein, he gave us Ralph bucks to help compensate us in our. But what it did was his friends got to make money off this, right?
Mhm.
And in Prince George, compared to Edmonton, natural gas is cheaper, and hydro or electricity is cheaper than in Alberta. And we have the gas here. How come it's not cheapest here,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, it's
Once again, it's a grift game, a graft
yeah.
where people are making money.
Like Doug Ford sold off parts of the green belt, and that should be the pride of Canada. We have the largest green belt in the world
Mm-hmm.
for developers and stuff. And it's like, of the homes that get built on this very precious land,
Yes.
they're mansions, like they're not affordable homes. So even the homes that are being built, the apartments that are being built,
Mm-hmm.
they're not affordable. But then every now and then you'll hear politicians say, oh, a certain percentage of this will be affordable
Yeah.
homes. But that has a technical meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so the affordable homes that they're building, like the affordable rent, is 80% of market rate, which is still not affordable,
It's not affordable.
not even close.
I live in uh, not a sustainable, but a working class neighborhood, and the property values are a little lower than the rest of the city. But empty lots, they're putting up 2 skinny houses on a lot, which
Mhm.
I abhor. And then our councillor, we had a mayor who was it was a builder, right? So he wanted to make sure the planning rules favored the builders, and he got his way, which is unfortunate because so they'll put a skinny house at half the lot that I have, and that'll start around 450,000. And the thing is, they tell me that it's for low cost housing. That's why we have to put these. It's worth more than my house.
Mhm.
There's nobody, no beginning family can afford that. I mean, the kids are going to have to be 40 by the time they're able to get out of the house.
Yeah, they're showing certain condos and things of that sort.
Oh yeah,
Starting price is $1 million. Like it's just.
I know, and even a modular home or a mobile
Mhm.
home, a brand new one's $185,000. It goes on to a lot, then you're paying $700 or $800 a month lot rent.
I think in my last live stream, I was talking about a luxury tent that was available off
A
the
lux
highway,
a luxury tent on the highway.
just off the highway or something. And the price for that was just ridiculous.
Well, tell me more.
uh,
How much was it? Do you remember?
let's see if I can
A,
find
a,
it.
a luxury tent, and what would be in this tent?
Not much. So let's see if I can find the article.
Oh, that's fine. Well, it's just the homes, the houses. So we still got a lot of land in Alberta, and they keep saying we got to make these skinny houses. And I look at the backyards. There's not enough room for a toy poodle to move around in. And I like the thought of a bungalow or a house or an apartment complex where there's some room for them, like a park or something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going back to putting gardens in their backyards up here. Just the cost of living. So while you're looking for that, let me play a clip of some of the housing stuff that's going on here, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Okay, so I will do that right now. I did play this on Friday, but it's well worth it.
Edmonton police suspect this fire 10 days ago was one of more than a dozen recent arsons set with a purpose: extortion. Those targeted members of the city's South Asian business community.
Typically, our victims receive a WhatsApp communication, and then from there, there's a request that comes along with that for some compensation.
So far, investigators say they've connected 27 crimes, including this drive-by shooting, to an extortion ring operating in Edmonton but controlled overseas.
It's our belief that these crimes are being orchestrated from India.
But Edmonton isn't alone. Similar incidents are the focus for police in other Canadian cities. On Boxing Day in Surrey, BC, the home of the son of a prominent community member was shot at.
They're thinking might be. They want to get, to scare us. and the community.
Satish Kumar arranged for RCMP to meet with local South Asian business owners. He says some have received demands for protection money.
And they ask you $2 million, you know, like cash money. First thing, who have a cash money over here to $1 million?
Then there's a situation in Peel region outside Toronto. Police there arrested a BC man after shots were fired at a Brampton business. Since November, they say, more than 20 extortion attempts have targeted the South Asian business community there.
Those that are being victimized are either complying to the threats, which we're encouraging them not to do, but to come to us investigatively, because we are working at a national level.
While the police chief ordered a special task force, Brampton's mayor wants an international effort.
It would require the full cooperation of law enforcement agencies in India.
Brown has support from his counterpart in Surrey, both demanding action from the federal government. Philip Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
And that was from the CBC News. And let's pin you back up here. So we have extortion rings from foreign agents. Apparently these people in India are extorting people from India, and it goes right across from Vancouver to Edmonton to Ontario as well. It's not the first time we've seen this. We've seen when the Romanians, a big flood of Romanians came in, we had the debit card scam where they were scanning cards and using your credit card numbers and stuff. I think the Irish even faced that too once they came into New York back in the 1800s. But they're getting kind of bad out there, Sandee.
Yeah, people are always looking to exploit other people. It's sad. Most vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When I was growing up, we had a big community feel. We had Little League. We had the Scoutmaster. You know, he was around, and he was good with the kids.
Sorry, we're back to speaker view on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, eh?
Yeah,
There we go. Is that better, Sandee? Anything for you?
I'll find out once the lag is over.
Oh, okay, fair enough. It will be better, and thank you for taking some time. I wanted one of your broadcasts. You talked, and I thought it was very poignant. Was about growing up overweight and people picking on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't mind going there. How did that shape you? Because you do not look overweight now at this age or anything. That must have been hard, eh? And what I think about is especially some teenagers who get doxxed and they go self-harm way and stuff like that. How did you avoid that? Is it just strength of character, strength of mind? Good.
I don't know. I nearly lost that battle.
Oh, really?
Multiple times. Part of it is just luck I've made it this long. But I'm still overweight. That's why I don't show much more of my body when I'm on camera.
Well, you don't look overweight according to my video. So.
Yeah. But growing up, just being targeted all the time. But then there's also the strain of trying to work in society with it, because standing on my feet for long periods of time, I couldn't. The pain was just so overwhelming. Yet, how many minimum wage jobs out there do you see where you get the option to sit down? Because you look at retail or cashiers or factory work, they all require you to stand. Or if you want to work in retail and clothing stores, they require you to wear their product while you're there. And a lot of the stores in the malls wouldn't have clothes that would actually fit me. And then, you know, if you're living with poverty and you're on disability, trying to get a gym membership is horrendously expensive. But then if you can get equipment for home, what a lot of people don't realize is that most of the equipment, especially the cheap equipment you see on, as seen on TV type stuff, have weight restrictions.
Oh, good one.
So, like, I've literally broken a piece of exercise equipment because I was too heavy for it, which is kind of devastating in a way.
So, with the craze for Ozempic, would that, do you think, would that have helped?
The craze for, sorry, you've gotten really quiet, so it's
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's my fault. And let me fix it. It should be fixed now. There we go.
that's better.
For Ozempic, the craze for Ozempic, that drug that helps you not eat, and better half's daughter's on it. She's pre-diabetic, so she needs to lose some weight on it, but she throws up all the time. But Ozempic is a drug out there on the market, mainly for diabetics, but it's being used off-brand to lose weight.
Anything like that is a farce. If there was a magical cure for obesity, we'd know it by now. Like, there wouldn't be any overweight people.
Right.
The problem is that I'm sure it might reduce the amount that you're eating, but there's reasons why people are overeating. Sometimes it's to do with mental health and stuff like that. So then that needs to be treated. Then it's the quality of food. If you live with poverty, the quality of food that you eat is crap and actually leads to weight gain. So you might be eating less, but it's, you know, food that's so unhealthy for you, it's causing you to gain weight.
It's bad calories.
Yeah, because for me to eat a healthy diet, it requires a lot of money just to have that, because I want to go back to the gym and get in shape and strengthen muscle, but how do you do that when you can't have access to the fruits and vegetables and protein that you need in order to do it?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But okay, so you were going through this. So does it must shape your empathy at this day and age, especially you're a renowned YouTube host and talking to people. So obviously it shapes your empathy and being able to look with kindness maybe on some people who are struggling.
Well, it's always trying to figure out, you know, why people are in the positions that they're in. Like, people don't choose a lot of what's dealt to them. Like, people don't choose to live with disabilities. They just happen to get them.
Right.
Like, nobody wants to, well, I can't imagine anybody wanting to be obese and what that does to you and makes you a target, and what it does to your health, and how it restricts your clothing, how it restricts your travel. Because it can be things as simple as, okay, well, you can't really even go in an airplane without having to buy 2 seats, or, you know, I had always wanted to travel the world when I was a kid. I love learning about different cultures and stuff like that. But at one point I came to the realization that even if I had the ability, I would not, because you know, in a lot of other countries, obesity isn't the same problem as here. And I don't want, you know, people stopping and pointing at me and laughing because I'm so overweight. Because I have enough people in this country who would go out of their way to tell me how fat I was.
Oh my.
So, you know, I couldn't imagine what it would be like going to an Asian country where so many people are so much slimmer. And just trying to deal with the negative attention you would get with that, not to mention what it does as somebody who presents female, your attractiveness to men drastically decreases. Like they say, when it comes to dating apps and stuff like that, the thing a woman fears the most when she goes on a date with one of these guys is getting murdered. But the thing a man fears the most is going on a date and finding out she's fat. And from my experiences, that is very much the case, because I've been rejected over and over and over again because of my weight.
Well, nobody should reject you, in my opinion. I have a friend in Vietnam, and he goes to Vietnam every winter. He's a lucky boy. He works road construction in the summer and then goes to Vietnam for the winter. And he's been going there for quite quite a few years, and he says this year, I was talking to him, he's noticed that because like you say, the Asians are nice and slender, right? He says since the KFC and a whole bunch of American restaurants, he says they're getting portly.
Oh yeah.
So he says he didn't recall ever seeing a fat Vietnamese guy unless he was with the government.
Yeah, capitalism has, like, a lot of these fast food restaurants have saturated the markets here. So
Mhm.
now they're looking to expand outward to countries that normally wouldn't deal with this sort of fast food.
Right.
And, you know, I had friends from China and Korea and stuff. And, you know, even at one point, like their fast food equivalent to KFC, the portions were much, much smaller than what you would get here even. So it used to be fine, even with the occasional fast food restaurants there, but now their markets are also getting saturated with all this convenient, tasty fast food. And it's just, it's horrible. Like, it's horrible when you live, like, they demand people lose weight, you know, oh, you're doing this to yourself, you're fat, you're a burden to society and stuff. But you can live in an area where there are no grocery stores.
Mhm.
You know, they're called food deserts, but then there's also food swamps where there's an abundance of fast food, but no abundance of places you can go to get made healthy food. So, you know, your meal 5 days a week could be fast food or something because that's convenient, that's fast. And because of capitalism and having to work 2 jobs and stuff, you don't have time to go home and make food for yourself necessarily because you're always on the go. And it can be cheaper. It's not necessarily cheaper anymore. My God, a meal at a fast food restaurant is like over $10 now.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, so how are you supposed to lose weight when you don't have the means to the food that's necessary to do it? You don't have the time to cook the food the way you're supposed to do it. You don't have the lifestyle that allows you to get exercise because you're so busy working. And then by the time you get home, all you want to do is crash.
Yeah.
Like it's, and then they blame people for being overweight, where it's like, no, this is a societal problem. It's not just the individuals. And like now, being skinny is almost a sign of wealth because you can afford the better food. You can afford to go to the gym to get a trainer. You have the time to work out and do what you need. But if you're living with poverty, you don't have any of that.
That is very true. We didn't grow up wealthy, and we did eat white bread and sugar, and I didn't put the weight on till I was later in life. But I have a theory. So I've been watching a whole bunch of Netflix documentaries on health, and they're saying it's not the sugar that kills you, it's the fat. The sugar draws you in, and then you eat that cake or whatever, and it's the fat that screws us up, and the corn syrup. I think the way the food is processed right now is a problem between the Roundup being used as a desiccant on cornflakes. They did a testing, and there was quite a bit of Roundup in the kids' cornflakes. Plus the Teflon. You know, do you agree it might be an industrial thing too, the way we process our food and everything as well?
Yeah. No, I've heard lots of stories of people in North America. Like, it's not as bad in Canada as it is in the United States because we do have a lot more regulations than in the States when it comes to how our food is processed and what's allowed in it and whatnot. But I've heard stories from Americans where they go overseas to Europe or something and they eat the exact same diet that they had before, but they end up losing weight because their food isn't processed the same way. Whereas in the States, it's all the added corn syrup and things of that sort to make it addictive, to make it cheaper to make, to grow and sell, and all this sort of horrendous stuff. Like the best way to lose weight without even having to sacrifice that much is to do all of your shopping in produce aisles and farmers markets and to make everything from scratch. And if you do that, you'll probably end up losing weight, but who has the skill? Who has the time? Who has the money?
That's a good point. And then you would miss that chlorinated chicken from America too, right? You know, that's the other thing is with the chicken, they're putting saline salt solution into the chicken so it weighs more. And thanks, Mr. Weston. And the salt's not good for you too, that much sodium
Well,
in your system.
Like the other thing that bothers me about living with poverty right now is I don't really have a choice with ethical consumption, food consumption.
Right.
Because for a period when I had, you know, a more regular income and stuff, I ate no factory farmed or processed meat.
Okay, that's smart.
So I still ate meat because, you know, meat is
Right.
tasty, but I drastically reduced the amount of meat I was eating. And then it was all from local market where, you know, I
Right.
know the farmers treat their animals with respect, or it's, if I go out to a restaurant, it's the more exotic meat on the menu where, you know, it's like, okay, chances are they didn't send this caribou to the same factory that they send the cows to, you
Yeah, that's
know,
true. Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I was on that for a few years. I was able to maintain it, and
Mhm.
it was
How
an
was your-
easy
How was
change.
how was your health affected as a result?
Doctor said that I had the best cholesterol she had ever seen from somebody not on medication.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I would agree. Especially your hamburger could be from 100 different cows
Mhm.
instead of just that one. And I'm sure, and I hate to say this, but there's probably mad cow in the system. The prions, because they don't tend to check every animal anymore. And I'd like to think our regulations in Canada are better, but Swifts and all these guys are paying for the inspectors. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether we get the quality inspection that we used to in through the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it's getting worse. Like, luckily, we still do have regulations, but they're still always looking for ways to cut corners and to
Yes,
cut
they are.
back.
Mhm.
And it is scary because some people don't have an option when it comes to what food they have to buy.
Well, it's the antibiotics in the animals too, because they give it to the chickens. They grow fatter and bigger.
Mhm.
They can't walk. They got bigger breasts, all for consumption.
Yeah.
And
No, like
I'm
that's
sure.
part of the
Go ahead.
reason why I didn't want any factory farm meat was just the torture that the animals go through.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't, you know, I just saw one video too many, and it's horrific
Mhm.
what we do to living creatures just for profit.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. And I'm from the farm, so I've seen that, but the videos I watched with the stockyards with the cows being, because they broke their leg, they're being taken up with a forklift to the killing floor. Thoroughly disgusted.
Mhm.
On that as well. Okay. Well, I guess we're coming up to the end of our time together. Sandee, what do you have on your show, and what days do you stream, my dear? Or sorry, Sandee.
I cover Canadian politics with sarcasm and sass, but I also cover social issues, talk about mental health, poverty, that sort of thing, disabilities. I want to have kind of set live stream times, but every time I say that, they end up changing. So right now, the current goal for live streams is Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern, only not tonight because I'm just taking a week off because I didn't do that around the holiday season in December.
Okay.
Because I know way too many people who are lonely that time of year, and it's nice just to have at least one familiar show online where there's community that you can go to on Christmas and around then. So I stayed on during that time, but then decided that I would take this week off in January instead. I still want to get back to just releasing some video essays every now and then as well, where it's like I focus on, you know, a key story that I want to do an in-depth dive on, interviews. So I should be back this Wednesday, hopefully with Ravana. She is a current contributor to TYT.
Mhm.
But she's a really wonderful person, has her own channel and things of that sort. So I'm looking forward to actually, I never got the chance to talk to her while I was at TYT. So it'd be nice to actually talk to her in person. And yeah, that's pretty much it right now.
Well, so, and it's always, I like your tagline, Sunday, Monday, and Wednesdays, 6-ish, right? Yeah. 6-ish.
Yeah, that's what I have on my
Yeah.
on the placeholder frame, just in case I've had technical issues going into it, or sometimes it's like, okay, I need to advertise a little bit more because there's, you know, 1 or 2 people waiting to see it or something. So just
Right.
trying to rev people up a little bit more to get them into the sandbox, as I call it, the chat.
I like that. Well, my little audience, they were after me to get you on, and I so much appreciate it. You're a delightful and really reasonable person with these issues. So I hope you and I could connect in the future. I would so much appreciate it. And I really enjoy talking to you, Sandee.
Yeah, sure thing. This was nice.
Okay. Well, and you were off for a week and you said, no, we're going to go on north of 48 and have a little conversation. So I so much appreciate it.
Well, the amount of work I have to do for this is very minimal, so I can handle it.
I'll ask the questions, you just answer them.
Yeah, no, it's so much easier going on somebody else's show than having somebody come on your show.
Well, that is true. If you could just hang on for 1 second, and I'll get us shut off on the internets, and we'll talk for a second. Okay.
Okay.